Morning, I'm Hazel. I'm Hazel Lavery. I'm the Events and Fundraising Manager with Community Rail Network. Welcome one and all to our webinar, How to Submit an Outstanding Awards Entry and Showcase Your Work. I'm really pleased to be hosting today's webinar, and I'm proud to say that I've been an integral part of the evolution of the Community Rail Awards since they began in 2005 in Norwich. And I'll be sharing some of my practical knowledge around all of that a bit later on. Now, before we move into the main session, I do have some key dates and some very important awards updates to share with you. And key dates for you to note, and they are published as well. Awards open for entries on Monday, the 11th of September, and they close on Monday, the 9th of October. The shortlist will then be published on the 18th of December, and the awards gala event is on the Monday the 18th of March in Swansea. Now on with those important awards updates. Now, due to recent Community Rail funding cuts and spending constraints, we know that attending the awards could prove to be very challenging for many of you. So we've been working hard at finding ways to financially support our shortlisted members so they can attend the awards. And I have two pieces of good news about this. Firstly, I'm very happy to tell you that through some careful awards budget analysis and reallocation, we will be offering an attendance subsidy fund to all shortlistees. Now, the full terms of the subsidy are still to be finalised, but we will be allocating a minimum of £50 towards accommodation or other attendance costs for at least one person, but hopefully two per shortlisted group. We're hopeful that this amount can increase, but as you'll appreciate, at the moment, we can't guarantee that. But do please watch this space, because as soon as we're able to confirm details, we'll publish them in Community Rail News. And just a note on the fund, groups will need to carry the costs until after the awards, as payments will be made in arrears, and only after we're able to confirm attendance by the relevant people. Now, the second piece of good news. I'm delighted to share with you that Rail Delivery Group have confirmed that they're able to support shortlistees travel to the awards in Swansea. This means that all shortlisted groups will be able to claim 2 complimentary return rail tickets from any UK station. We're really grateful for this support for our members, as we know just how significant travel costs would be otherwise and likely prohibit attendance for many of you. The application forms for the subsidy fund and for the tickets will be available to download from our website from the 18th of December as the shortlist is announced. But we will also email these to all shortlistees along with a shortlisting certificate. So we'll just keep an eye out for those emails. Now, there is also some more practical support for submitting entries to the awards. And as part of our drive to support our members in those entries, in addition to this webinar, we'll also be running several weekly drop-in support sessions during the awards open period. And those commence on the 18th of September and run through to the 9th of October. The full schedule and Zoom details can be downloaded from our website, and the link will also appear in the chat in a moment. Now, we hope that you're really heartened by the level of support available to you this year. We're keen to encourage as many entries as possible, and it's important to get as many of you to the awards as we can, which Dan will explain a little further in a moment. Okay, so just to introduce Dan Coles to you. Dan is our Director of our Director of Member Support and Development, and he's going to give you a little bit of an introduction to today's webinar. Dan will then hand on to Nikki Forsdyke, who is leading the main session today and who is one of our most experienced awards judges. Nikki will be sharing valuable insights, hints and tips on what you need to think about and prepare, so each of your awards entries not only meets the criteria but really grabs the judge's attention. Nikki will then be joined by our panel of esteemed judges for a more general discussion and Q&A session. Then, after a quick coffee break, we will be handing over to you to dig a bit deeper with the panel judges and ask your questions about specific categories during our breakout sessions. And at this point, please refer to the agenda for the details of the relevant categories and the room number that you wish to choose. I'll also be available during the breakout sessions to offer advice and answer questions on some of the more practical elements of entering the awards. And for anyone who might find it helpful, I can also demonstrate on screen how to actually submit an entry through our system and upload supporting documents, etc. But we'll mention a little bit more about that before we go into breakouts. For now, though, I'll quickly run through some basic housekeeping. Most of us are very familiar with Zoom functions by now, so just a few reminders, and I'm going to zip through these. Please rename yourselves if you haven't already. Change your full name and your organisation on your Zoom profile. You click the 3 dots or more option by your name in the list and do that. The webinar is being recorded and it will be uploaded on our website along with the presentation slides. Chat and Q&As, please use the Q&A button or raise hand function to ask specific questions at relevant times, and please use the chat option just for any general comments, ideas that you'd like to share as we go along. In the main discussion and the breakouts, a member of the team will unmute you when you're invited to speak. It might be a bit different in the breakouts, actually. You might be able to do that in there, but we'll see how that goes. If you do have any technical issues today, please text Hannah with your name and she'll call you back. Her name is in the chat and it's also in your joining information. The breakouts, you will be in control of moving yourself in and out of the breakout rooms, so you'll be able to speak to more than one judge and about different categories, but we'll give you more information on this when we come to that point. And the all-important feedback survey, an online survey will pop up automatically as the webinar ends, and we really appreciate you taking the time to complete this anonymously. So that's enough from me. I'm delighted to now hand on to Dan. Over to you, Dan.
Thanks, Hazel. Morning, everyone. I've got the pleasure of opening this today, this webinar. I'm really looking forward to a session focusing on how to submit a great entry to the Community Rail Awards, and then some of those methods, hints and tips to make your entries as engaging as possible and hopefully potential winners. So for those who don't know me, and I've seen lots of familiar names in the chat, I'm Dan Cole, so I'm the Director of Member Support and Development with Community Rail Network. I've been with the organisation about 3 months, so this is one of the things I'm really looking forward to, is seeing the shortlist, seeing the winners and the entries that we have. So today we're going to be going through some details on the awards, but before that I just wanted to just acknowledge that we've been going through some very challenging times in the industry recently. So I think now more than ever, the Community Rail Awards matter. They matter because in one place, they sort of showcase the incredible, diverse and varied work that you carry out every day and our community rail partnerships and station adopters alike. So we encourage everyone in the community rail family to pull together to enter the awards and help demonstrate that true value of community rail. The awards celebrate the power of local engagement and collaboration, and they help to evidence the profound impact that community-led projects can have on railways and also on the communities that they serve. So whether you're submitting for the first time or you're experienced at all of this, we hope today's session will be really useful in helping you shine a spotlight on the wonderful work being done by your group, and will support you in submitting great entries. We all know that community rail is about fostering connections. It's about bringing together local authorities, railway operators, community groups, volunteers, and just those passionate individuals who share a common goal, which is to create vibrant, inclusive and sustainable rail services that truly reflect the needs and aspirations of the communities they serve. And I think your entries celebrate that impact that you've made with your work, breathing new life into your stations, your lines and our communities. They can revitalise areas previously overlooked and create gateways for economic growth, tourism, social cohesion. These awards are about celebrating a sense of ownership and pride in local railways and communities and empowering members to make positive changes in their own backyard. Your entry might inspire groups all across the UK to start their own projects. The awards recognise the tireless efforts of those who dedicate their time, energy and passion to community rail projects, from innovative station partnerships that enhance accessibility and beauty of stations to creative community engagement initiatives that nurture belonging and inclusivity. These awards celebrate the diversity and ingenuity of community rail projects throughout the UK. So let's talk about the support and development opportunities available to all of you who are eager to make your entry in these awards. The Community Rail Network Support and Development Team, which I lead, will be here to assist you every step of the way, alongside our events team, Hazel and Hannah. We understand that documenting an already intense community rail project can be a bit of a daunting task at times, and that's why we're committed to providing you with the guidance, resources and expertise necessary to make your project a resounding success. Today you have a bit of a unique opportunity, one I'm looking forward to as well, of having direct access to the panel judges during the breakout session, so do make the most of those too. Our expert panel are on hand to answer any questions you might have today, but our team is also here to help you develop your submissions and any questions you might have after the fact. We have a wealth of experience in supporting awards applications, so if you think of something after today's sessions or just need a bit of clarification, don't hesitate to reach out to us, and do remember the drop-in support sessions that I think Hazel made reference to earlier. Finally, just to sum up, just to express my sincere gratitude for coming along today. I think it's great to see so many people have signed up, and great to see hopefully the passion and hard work will be rewarded. And I'm really looking forward to seeing your entries and meeting as many of you as I can at the awards in Swansea. So with that, thank you very much, and I will hand over to Nikki.
Thank you very much, Dan. Well, good morning, everyone. Let me see if I can share my screen for you. Okay. There we go. So
You just need to start your presentation. That's it. You're on.
So I'm going to be helping you, I hope, by going through it's how to submit an outstanding entry and showcase your work. I should say it's culled from the wisdom of a panel of judges, and it's things that we've learned over the years that we hope will help you do a winning entry. So who am I? I'm Dr. Nicola Forsdyke, usually known as Nikki. I've been on the judging panel for the award since 2012, which coincidentally was the year I started my PhD, my doctoral study at the University of York. I finished that in 2018 and stayed on there as a lecturer. So the session today is really about what makes an outstanding submission for the Community Rail Awards. It's not about what makes a good or outstanding project, it's about how to write that up. So for me, and I know I speak for my fellow judges here, the Community Rail Awards and reading the submissions is one of the highlights of my year. I love reading about the work you're doing. There's some amazing things going on. And it is so frustrating when we get an entry for something that's clearly an amazing project, but hasn't been done justice in the write-up. You know, if you don't give us information, we can't take that into account in the judging. So what I really hope today will help you with is work out what information to put in and how to put it across to us. So if you remember nothing else from today, please take away these 3 key messages. So first, make sure you focus on supplying the information you've been asked for and relate it to the specific category criteria for the actual award you're entering. So the booklet gives a lot. Oh, I'm so sorry, I took that off. I did actually take the phone off, so I really apologise for that. So in terms of information, check the booklet, make sure you're writing up the information you've been asked for. So write up the details of the project that will help the judges understand how well it meets the judging criteria. The material that Community Rail put out is really clear, really good, so use it. And make sure you understand the judging criteria. So let's go into what makes a good submission. So this might sound really obvious, but actually, I say we do get entries that don't comply, and I don't want yours to be one of those. So make sure it's compliant with the rules of entry. Make sure it fully meets the brief in the awards entry booklet. So make sure it doesn't waffle. Make sure it's clearly presented, that you've got that it's well evidenced. And I will go through in a little while what we mean by well evidenced, so what counts as evidence. So make sure it's within the required word count. You know, we will stop when we get up to the word limit, and it doesn't matter how good the information is after that, it won't be taken into account. So when the full entry book is available, check there, check the what's being asked for, make sure you understand that. But in general, a good submission will tell us the concept and aims of the initiative. So what the project was about, what it was hoping to do, what you wanted to achieve. Tell us what happened. So describe it, how did it go, who did it, you know, who took part, and talk about the results from that. So before the entry booklet's available, you should be able to get the entry and criteria list. They were sent out to you before the seminar. So think about the categories you want to enter and the criteria for those. You can also use the winners booklet. That gives you some ideas on how to lay out a great entry. What I would say is if you've got questions as you're going on, as I'm going through, what I suggest you do is make a note of those, and then you can raise those in the Q&A session with the judges at the end. So it's quite difficult to talk about this in the abstract. And writing a good entry is a skill. It's something that comes with practice. And I found that generally it's easier to spot when someone else's weak one can be improved than it is to think from scratch about what's good and what's bad. So what I've done is I've prepared an example. It's hypothetical, but to make it real, I've based it on a campaign I ran over 20 years ago. So I should say I worked in the rail industry for a long time before I went to study for my PhD. So if this campaign bears any resemblance to any more recent campaigns, it's totally coincidental, but it is based on something I did quite a long time ago now. So what I'd like you to do is just read this through. I'm just going to give you a minute or two to read this through. Okay, has everybody had time to read that? If you've finished, perhaps you can give us a thumbs up if you know how to do that.
Videos are off, Nikki.
Ah, so they are. In that case, put in the queue, just drop in the chat if you need a bit more time. Okay, so what we've got is poll. I think Hannah,
Sorry, Nikki, Michelle needs a little bit more time.
Okay.
It's second language, of course.
Ah, okay. I'll give you a minute more.
That should be fine now.
Okay, so shall we've got a little poll to help us think about this. So the first part of it It's just, do you think this meets the criteria? So do you think this meets that overall it's a good entry?
I'm hoping that's come up. I've launched the poll, so
Yes, it has, Hannah,
It
yeah.
has. So,
has, yeah.
so question 1 is a yes, no answer. Question 2, how could it be improved?
So we've got answers. People are still answering.
Yeah.
Is everybody done?
We've got 9, I think, haven't we? Anybody else?
Hazel, I'll take your guidance to end the poll because I could only see the back end.
Oh, it's disappeared, Hannah. Somebody's saying it's disappeared.
Oh, it's saying here. I've got. It's just giving me the end poll. No, that's frustrating. Let me go back. I'll try.
Relaunch poll, you can.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying. It's got end poll, and then I'm just going to relaunch it.
Sorry, everyone.
Sorry
Well,
about this.
well-
Relaunch poll. Let's try that. There we
Still
go.
A little technical hiccup.
I'm hoping that's worked.
Yep, it's back up. Sorry, everyone. If you can do it again.
So we might have lost everybody who's answered.
Yeah. Probably giving everyone a bit more time to think about it as well.
Ah, good. We've increased the number of entries as well.
Yeah. I'm going to say we should have at least 35 answers on there. 20. Brilliant. Keep going, keep going. We're just mindful of time, aren't we? I think we probably need to.
Okay, so shall we call it a day there?
End the
Yeah.
poll, and I can share the results.
The results.
Gonna work. That come up? It's telling me that it has.
I can see the results. Can you see the results, Nikki?
I think so. It's we've got 8% saying it meets all the criteria. 92% participants do things.
Yeah.
So and ways to improve it. So I think half the team say add the name of the project, the person group nominated. Absolutely. Yes, it doesn't actually tell us in the opening who's put this forward. And nor does it tell us really what the aims of the project were and how it was set up. And it definitely doesn't have any end results apart from lots of coverage on local social media. So I think we can stop sharing that.
Okay.
That gone?
Yeah, that's gone, Nikki.
Excellent. And my screen's frozen. And there we go. There we go. So just a summary. So these are some thoughts on how it could be improved. So one thing there is actually to use the third person, not the first person. So when putting the entries together, to keep it professional, to keep it objective for the judges, it's really helpful just to talk about this as from the organisation's point of view, not use a we or I, but to say that, you know, the partnership did this, X partnership did Y. So and tell us which organisations are involved and who's leading it, and be really precise. So often when we're really close to something, we know a lot of detail about it and we carry a lot of things in our head about it. But we don't, unless you put that down on virtual paper for us, we don't know. So rather than say it ran in the summer, tell us how long it ran for. That's material. We don't know whether it's a 1-week campaign or a 3-month campaign, for example, in the example we've just looked at. And it said, you know, lots of press coverage. What does that mean? Does it mean it got, you know, a couple of paragraphs in the local paper? Or does it mean it actually went viral and it was covered by news outlets across the region or across the country? So give specific examples and give some scale. And I say, don't assume the reader knows what you know. So that the paragraph before it talked about the poet having a residency. what does that actually mean? You know, how many weeks did they spend? Did they spend time traveling on the trains? Did they work with staff? What was the detail? What actually happened? And the final thing is about using your word count judiciously. So this particular entry is actually shorter than the space you're given for your 200-word summary. So it's 25% of the words haven't been used. So that suggests that there should have been more detail in it. So if you find your summary is really short, maybe you should be thinking about putting some more really punchy detail into it. So, and remember, word count can't be rolled over between sections. So if you don't use it, you lose it, basically. So once you've sorted out your 200-word description, then you can look at your 600-word. So don't duplicate what you've already said, expand on it. But, you know, we do look at both. It's so that you don't need to repeat everything that was in the initial summary. It's your opportunity to expand on elements from that. So again, read the categories and criteria really carefully and make sure you're responding to them. So check the rules of entry, check the detail in there on how to submit a good entry. And particularly today, use the breakout sessions to talk to us. You know, if you want further clarification, more detail, some ideas, please, you know, all you need to do is ask us. This is your opportunity today to use that. So a reminder that if you're entering category 11, it's got some special features. In particular, you need to break down your 600-word summary. So have a look at what's being asked for. And remember too, for category 11, you've got the It's Your Station toolkit, and it's got its own drop-in support session, in addition to the ones that Hazel's talking about that's coming in September, October. So to write an outstanding submission, so we're talking about your 600 words here, when you're thinking about how you're laying it out, it's really helpful if you use section headings that are related to the judging criteria. It makes it really easy for us to see. Well, it makes it really easy for us to see that those are met, but also it helps you tie what you're writing back to what's being asked for. So it can be a really useful framework for you to think about how you're putting forward the information. So the introduction should draw the reader in, and it should explain why the issue that your project, your initiative is addressing is important, and support your statements with evidence. So, so you could say, for example, so this is off the top of my head, so the numbers are wrong, but it could be, you know, 10,000 people a year, or research shows that 10,000 a year people a year in our region are unable to access a particular station because of a particular issue. Our project addressed that through providing information, working on access, outreach in the community. So explain, you know, why the issue is really important, why it matters, and support your statements with evidence. And linked to that, then you're thinking about the impact. So if you've been addressing an issue, what did you want to achieve? You know, so what impact did you get from your project? What purpose has it achieved? So, and you can write that up in a number of ways. It could be quantitative, using numbers. So that might be a sort of slightly weaker measure is the number of times something's been seen on YouTube. Backing that up with it's delivered a 10% increase in revenue for journeys between X and Y, if you can get them from your train operating company, or if you can do passenger counts, so that if you know that it's increased passenger numbers, then that's powerful. But sometimes qualitative evidence is also just as, and maybe even more important, quotations from users emphasizing what they've gained from it. So that could be, you know, as one participant said, this was a project that really positively impacted on my life. It gave me the opportunity to be part of a project. It gave me a reason for carrying on. It allowed me to befriend other people like myself and develop my confidence. So you can make, you know, as part of your project, think about gathering that kind of evidence, and you can use it in your submission. If we're doing things anyway, we should be gathering this kind of measurement to have a think about what's working and what's not working, and how we move forward. Then you can use a mix, obviously, of different kinds of evidence, of numbers and quotations. But what you're trying to do is give an evaluation of whether you've achieved what you set out to achieve, and how it's made a difference. So supporting evidence, you're allowed 4 images, 4 supporting documents and 1 link. And that supporting evidence can include copies of material, so it might be YouTube videos, screenshots of apps, PDFs of brochures, leaflets. It could be evidence of impact. So photos of launch events, press coverage, screenshots of social media. It can be evidence about your costs. And in the projects, it's particularly important. You need to provide copies of bills and receipts for things that you've actually had to pay for, and a breakdown of costs. It might be letters from partners and others, and it can be survey results. So you might do a little survey of users asking them whether they've enjoyed it. So key tips. Firstly, I find it really useful to get somebody to read things through after I've written them. So you bring you a different pair of eyes, sees different things, they can critique it, they can help you think about how well it meets the criteria. So secondly, plan out your word count. If you've got to hit certain criteria in your submission, think about how you're going to allocate your words against them. Again, I find it really useful to document ideas down in bullet points first, so that I've got some idea of how that's going to be distributed. So plan out your word count, stay within it, and make sure you use your words wisely. So you're using things for things that are really going to count against those judging criteria. And think about the presentation of your document. So is it easy to read? Is it well laid out? Does it use headings to guide the judges between sections? And I talked about linking those headings to the judging criteria. So is where you've got additional evidence, is it really clear how that links to the text in your main document? So, so a random evidence file can be difficult to relate back to the main text. So, say in the text, this photo of this in the evidence or whatever, link it for the reader. And make sure the elements you use are appropriate, of good quality. It's just really helpful in giving that aura of professionalism to your entry. Not like my phone going off earlier. So key takeaways and further support. So you saw this at the beginning, and I've tried to reiterate these messages I go through. So make sure you focus on supplying the information you ask for in the criteria for the actual award you're entering. So read the material that the Community Rail are producing, and use that to make a really good write-up. So make sure you write up the important details of your project that's going to help us understand how it meets the judging criteria. And the starting point for that is making sure you understand those judging criteria. And as part of that, remember, you can get support on that during September and October from the Community Rail team. There's also ongoing support from the Community Rail Network team. So I think at this point, firstly, good luck. I'm really hoping we'll see some great entries from you this year. But secondly, I'd like to invite my fellow judges to join me and for you to raise questions that you've got. I think there might be some in the chat already.
And do you want to stop screen sharing, please, Nikki, as well?
I will. I just want to check that that's all right. There's nothing in the chat that... Yeah, you've been doing the chat as we go through. So
yeah, and I've asked people to put questions into the Q&A, so we've actually got a couple come up in there too.
Excellent.
So I'll just wait for all the judges to turn their cameras on. So 2, 4, 6, 7. Lovely. Okay, so welcome everyone. So we have Dom, Vicky, Jim, Paul, Andy and Mark now joining Nikki. So shall I have a look at the Q&A first, and then we can go on to any verbal questions? So Claire from North Staffs has asked, does It's Your Station entries have to include activities in all 4 of those categories? So the community, gardening, art and heritage, etc. Paul, I'll bring you in for that, please. You're still muted.
Okay.
There you go.
Right, sorry, is the question literally about just it's your station category?
It is, yeah.
Obviously, because we score each category. So there are a number of points for each category. If you don't enter all of them, you're going to get marked down on the number of points that you get towards the total. So really, yes, the more that you can put in there that is part of those 4 categories, obviously the higher you will score. It doesn't mean that you can't enter if you're not doing all of those things. It just means that, yes, you won't get ranked quite as highly.
Yeah. And just to mention that anyone who enters and is at least doing gardening automatically receives a bronze level certificate, don't they? So,
indeed, yes.
okay.
Yeah. So everybody wins something. Everybody gets categorized, unless you, for some reason, sadly, that you don't actually fulfill some of the criteria around safety or anything else like that, where I'm afraid we have to disqualify you. Otherwise, yes, everybody will get graded and will be awarded something.
Okay, thanks, Paul. And then the next question from Becky at Hollingbourne. Can we enter more than one category? I'll actually answer that. Yes, you can, Becky, but it has to be different projects in different categories. You can't enter the same project across several categories. If you just make sure, and Nikki's touched upon this, really, really important that you read through the rules of entry really thoroughly, and the how to submit a good entry as well. And all that information is contained within there. And Tracy Stevenson asks a very good question, actually. Is there an alternative to online entry? Now, we have done this before, Tracy. It's another one for me. We will accept a paper entry if somebody does not have access to the online function. And we have done it for a member of one of your station adopters, actually, up in Scotland. So if they just have a quiet word with us, just an email or whatever, and we'll facilitate that. Of course we will. We don't want to exclude anybody. So thanks for that, Tracy. And then Debbie Fox asks a question. Let me see. Growing Redhill works at Reigate Station in Surrey, which seems covered by CRP input. We have great support there. We also work at Merstham Station, which doesn't seem to be covered. Can we only apply for awards for stations covered by a CRP? Thank you. So, Paul, Mark, I'll bring you in on that one this time.
Hi, Debbie. Thanks for that question. No, you don't have to be within a CRP in order to submit an entry. We welcome entries from all station adoption groups, wherever they're located and whether or not they are within a community rail partnership area.
Okay, thank you. Claire asks another question. Can a 2-year project completed before 11th September 23 be submitted? Yes, is the short answer to that. Yeah. David Stubbins, another one on It's Your Station. I know there's a category for sustainability. What's the general view on having a water supply? We at CARC find Northern extremely reluctant to let us collect rainwater. Sorry, I think I'm not sure that's a question particularly about the awards. Isn't that more an operational question? So I think that's something please to pick up with support and development.
Yeah, David, if you want to get in touch afterwards, separately with myself or someone from the team, we can follow up on that one with you, because I sort of know the background in that from discussions from before. So yeah, get in touch and we'll follow that up.
Okay. There is one more question. It got accidentally marked as answered, and it's from Dave Carlisle at Buxton. And he asked a really good question, actually. Do judges mentally switch off an entry if the summary entry is poor? So let's see, who should we bring in for that? Vicky, I'm going to bring you in on that one.
No. It's certainly in my experience and all the judges I worked with last year, we really want to get into the depths of all the submissions. Obviously, as Nikki was saying, it's about thinking carefully about how you sell your project and trying to grab our attention. But we thoroughly read all the applicants, every aspect of them, because we want to gain as much information as we can.
Thanks, Vicky. That's lovely. So I'm just going to have a look back in the main.
I think Andy's got his hand up, Hazel.
Andy, yeah, please come in.
Just to add to what Vicky said, it's much easier to follow and understand a submission if it follows all the guidance that Nikki's put there. And as a judge, we read everything, we try to give it the maximum credit, but if it's laid out and follows the instructions and the guidance, then it's much easier to read and much easier to see how it ticks against the various criteria.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Andy.
I think Mark's got his hand up too, and
Yeah.
so is Paul.
Yeah, Mark. In fact, if you both unmute, Mark and Paul, bring you in together.
Okay, I'm going back to Dave's question about water butts and so forth. The sustainability category in It's Your Station really has two dimensions to it, both of which are validly called sustainability. One is things like rainwater recycling, bat boxes and bug hotels, that anything to encourage pollinators, that kind of dimension. It also covers anything you're doing to help encourage sustainable travel. In other words, walking and cycling to or from stations. So there's plenty to go at in that particular section for entries to It's Your Station.
Lovely. Thanks, Mark. Thank you for explaining that. Paul?
Yeah, I just had two different things there. Yeah, what Mark was saying about sustainability. I mean, one of the things that we have been looking at in the past and we'll be looking at now and in the future is trying to cut down on the amount of water that is needed to look after stations with station gardens, because obviously water resources are likely to become more scarce in the future. So anything that people are doing around that will be featured in what we look at. The second point was the earlier question is, yes, we look at everything. If we get the initial entry and we can see from that first précis that actually it's really good, that's great. But what we've always tried to do as judges is tease out other information where we might know a little bit about a group or we might not, but we suspect there's more than just what is in the entry. We will literally interrogate people and tease things out and find out maybe there's something that they haven't told us or they've forgotten about. And that's part of the one-to-ones that either Mark and I have done in the past where we've been able to visit people, or that we do online.
Yeah, and actually, Paul, that's something that I think we mentioned it in the toolkit. There is going to be a facility where the judges may request an online meeting to follow up. This is just for It's Your Station, I hasten to add, only for It's Your Station. They may get in touch if they need some more information, and that is the only flexible approach that we use for It's Your Station, not any other categories. Okay, thank you. So there are a couple more questions in the Q&A, and then we might open up the floor. I'm just looking at the timing actually. Hannah, how are we doing for time? Sorry, I've got that many screens open now. I've lost the agenda.
We've got about 4 minutes, Hazel.
Oh wow. Okay, we filled that quite quickly, haven't we? So there's a question here. As members of the board or leading group for the project, are members of the board or leading group for the project able to be quoted for qualitative evidence? So who hasn't spoken? Jim, I'm going to bring you in on that one, please.
So the question is asking if we as judges can be quoted in a submission.
It says as members of the board or leading group for the project. So like the steering group or whatever, I'm assuming. Or shall I get Becky? Hannah, can you unmute Becky, please? Becky Stroud. And if you'll ask the question, please, of Jim. Okay, we managed to do that. Hannah? Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Hazel, I'm here. I had somebody having problems trying to get on this morning, so I was just trying to help them. Sorry, were you asking me to do something?
Can you unmute Becky Stroud, please?
Yeah, of course. Hold on one second. Becky. There we are. Unmute. Sorry, everybody. Being pulled in multiple directions behind the scenes.
Yeah. Becky, please go ahead and ask your question of Jim, if you can just explain a bit more.
Yes, so I was just saying, for the qualitative purposes of the evidence, are we allowed as a steering group or a board? We're a CIC for our station, so I was just wondering for the evidence side of things, whether the board or members of the board can be quoted for the qualitative evidence, or does it have to be sort of members of the public, people who've come along to your events, that sort of thing?
As far as I'm concerned, as much evidence as possible. Anybody who's supporting the evidence that you've given, I would be quite happy to look at. Again, just be very careful on the word count, because quite often you can read right through and people get so enthusiastic, they just keep going and add more and more words. We had a very good submission a couple of years ago, which was 600 words beyond the limit. Lots of evidence, but it just didn't, it had to cut off at that point. As long as it's relevant evidence, I'd be happy to read it.
Okay, lovely, thank you.
Thanks, Jim. There's a couple more in the Q&As that I'm going to run through really quickly. If you use headings in the main body as suggested, do they form part of the 600 word count? In a word, yes. So you don't need to, just be careful about how you use that. And then Claire Sands, does the category duplication rule also apply to It's Your Station? Can a project be included in an It's Your Station entry and appear separately, e.g. in a community art category? In that instance, actually, yes, Claire, it can, because It's Your Station is about the whole of the station work as a whole. It's a unique category, that. So yes, if there is artwork that you want to submit into the creative category, then yes, you can do that as well. Okay, that one's done. So that's all the questions in the Q&A. So we've got a minute or so. I think we could allow a couple more minutes. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to ask people to raise their hands if they would like to ask a question in person, please. And Henry, if you'll be ready to unmute, please.
I'm here, Hazel. Yeah.
Okay. I can only see one screen at a time, so I'm just backwards and forwards here.
There's another question just come in to the Q&A box. It's, are judges, this is from David Buxton, are judges happy to hear about projects that didn't succeed?
So let me see, who haven't we heard from? Dom, we haven't heard from you. Will you take this one, please?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's not about whether or not it succeeds or doesn't succeed. I think that's quite an arbitrary approach. You're looking at what you've achieved from it. If you've learned actually you needed to reach out into different areas of the community, for example, did you maybe need to seek the support of subject matter experts in a particular area? It's more about what you learned from it, what you took, what you put into the community overall. I mean, any project, we've all decorated the front room and thought, well, that color really doesn't go after all. So we change it, we learn from it. And it's exactly the same in any project on Community Rail. So long you can evidence what you've taken from it, what you'll put into practice, etc. That's the critical part to evidence, in my humble opinion. I know others have got their hands up as well.
All right, thanks for that, Dom. I'll bring Jim in there then.
I've always kept all the scoring and wondered why nobody's come back and said, why didn't we get shortlisted, or why were we not considered? It would be, I think, helpful sometimes for us to explain to people, you didn't meet this criteria, you didn't do this. I've never, in the 4 years I've done it, had anybody come back and say, what did we do wrong?
Actually, Jim, what we do there, I don't know if I've ever explained this. I keep the records on the spreadsheets of all your comments and everything, and anyone who does ask for feedback, we supply that via email to them. So we'll provide your comments and so on to them. So we do provide feedback. And we have been asked, rather. Paul?
Yeah, certainly we're interested in people's mistakes because you learn from mistakes. And we've seen this an awful lot with our particular category, where people have done various different types of planting and found that things haven't worked because of the ground conditions and lack of water, for example, in the places that they're looking at. So yeah, and then they learn from that, they get advice, things change, you grow from your mistakes. So yes, don't be shy of letting us know something that didn't work, if then you've learned from that and you can show us how you've adapted.
Mm. And as long as you're not using up your juice, so to speak, of the, your sort of word count and all that kind of thing to explain that, I would say, it might be, if it's something that you feel is valuable to share with Community Rail, please get in touch with our team and share that, Dave, and send us the information. Lessons learned are really valuable for everyone.
Things like that can be described very well in videos.
Yes, yeah. Okay, thank you. I think we're going to have to leave the open round table discussions there. We're going to go to a coffee break, and after the coffee break we'll introduce the breakout sessions. I'm going to be in the main session, and I know I said I'm going to be available for practical questions and so on, but I also will take general questions on the awards, anything that's non-category specific and things like that. So if you had anything more general that you did want to bring up, you can ask me in the main session as well, and if I can't answer it, I'll suggest you popping in to a room so I can direct people as well. So it's now 10:54. We're going to extend the coffee break a little bit. We're going to pinch a little bit of time off the breakouts, and we will come back. Let's give 9 minutes and we'll come back at 5:05, please. So make sure you're back here for 5:05 when we're going to go into breakouts. Okay, thank you everybody. What a great first half of the webinar, and thank you ever so much, Nikki, for your presentation. That was fantastic. The question was, so sorry, Nikki, will you ask it again, please?
The question is, you have an initiative that's got many different small parts to it, but you restricted, and also they're very visual. So how do you best do justice to that in the entry, given that we set a limit on the number of images used?
Okay. So my answer was that we have a limit of 4 images for a reason, and previously people have tried to get around it by putting lots of images into a montage, and they put it onto a Word document, and then they create a JPEG, and they think because they've submitted one JPEG it's one image, but it's not, and it actually breaks the rules. So, and we have had entries thrown out for that very reason, and very good entries as well that would have got through and been shortlisted otherwise. There is a way around it, however. You are entitled to submit a video. So if you wanted to video some of your work and then submit a video to the judges, that's a way of encapsulating lots of little bits and pieces, and you could do that. And It's Your Station, the It's Your Station toolkit, which everyone has access to, even though it's not for that category. Paul Bigland, who's our event photographer and professional videographer as well, has put some really good hints and tips about creating videos as well, which you can apply to any of your projects. So do have a look at that. We've got several hands up. This is our sort of roundup final questions and sort of leading into our close. So I've got judges, I'm going to come back to you. I've got Tony with a hand up. I'm going to ask you to unmute, Tony.
Hi. Yeah, it was just a response to the video. Is there a limit on the length of the video?
I don't think we specify a length, but I think anything other than just a few minutes would be too much. So okay, maybe we need to look at specifying the length, actually.
A few minutes is possible. Okay, All right, thank you.
Vicky?
We just had, maybe it's something we can follow up afterwards, but it was a question that came up around the community creative projects and station arts for this year. We're looking at dividing them into large, medium and small categories. We gave a bit of a rationale as to why that was, but there was a question around, does large, medium, small apply to the group that is submitting the application, not the partners they worked with? So you could have a station adoption group that works with a large school, but that doesn't mean that makes it a large group. They're still a small category in that.
Yes, sorry, Vicky. Yes, it's the group. It's the group. Yeah. And that, yeah, so it doesn't matter whatever partners were involved in that project, that doesn't matter. It's about the group itself. It's the number of employees and the funding status as well. Karen, we developed this together, didn't we? So yeah, it's around judging like for like. So for example, some groups, some CRPs, for example, have much more funding than others, and more staff. So it's not judging like for like. If you then go for a CRP that's only got one part-time member of staff and very little funding. So it was around the size of the group, not the project and not the partners involved.
Perfect, thank you.
So Mark, you were next, I think.
Okay, a very good question raised in our breakout room, which we could do with a definitive answer for, and that is, what is the period of time covered by It's Your Station? Is it since the last It's Your Station, or is it more?
It's Your Station is ongoing, isn't it? So we say it's ongoing, and as long as there's been improvements from last year, so you know, year on year. So what we're looking at is year on year improvements, year on year developments. So for example, you know, we know Buxton has been going a long time, but year on year, what additional stuff have the groups been doing on top of things that have previously been submitted? Does that make sense?
I think so. Can I ask Claire if that's answered the question for her? If you can unmute her.
Where are you, Claire?
I've just unmuted.
Thank you. Yeah, partially. But the last It's Your Station category, well, that wasn't in the last year's awards, was it?
A new one.
Yeah, so are we looking at the last 12 months, or are we looking at progress since the last time the It's Your Station awards were held?
Are you talking about arts and heritage?
No, It's Your Station.
No, but within It's Your Station, you're talking about the 4 elements within there. Which one?
All of them.
Referring? Oh, okay. So it's ongoing. So so even though there's a new element been added this year, if it's something that's historic even, then you should be able to include it. Okay. I'll just leave that with you for a minute, because we're running out of time, and I'm going to go to a couple more. Andy?
Yeah, the discussion that we were having about photos, really coming at it from the other end. There are occasions when I've seen submissions where the 4 photos have been wasted because, for example, have been 4 pictures of the same piece of artwork. And we need to, yes, we want to see the artwork, but 1 photo is sufficient. And let's have something about its setting in the station, how it relates to people.
Yeah.
So don't just bang in 4 photos for the sake of it. Use the photos to tell the story every bit as much as you use the text.
Yeah, and that's part of the preparation as well, isn't it? Is that, and it's something that's been brought up by Paul Webster on behalf of some of the groups, talking about the time it takes to put an entry together and so on. And actually, if you start to get organised now and think about photographs, you know, do you need to take some more? Do you need better photographs? What evidence do you need to gather? Start saving things together, get a folder together onto your computer, save things as you're supporting evidence. You know, if you've written about a project already somewhere else, can you revamp that text to help you? You know, look at clever ways of utilising your time in the run up to the entries opening. So yeah, and you're absolutely right, Andy. It's about using those 4 photographs in the best possible way to demonstrate that entry, isn't it?
Yeah, and I've just been having a conversation with a friend on Festiniog, who's running a project there, about the photos he's circulating of the work in progress, and saying, for God's sake, keep hold of these photos, because when you come to enter it in the National Rail Heritage Awards, these will help you no end in your submission. So you need to think about your 4 photos, if you can, quite early.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to bring in a comment from Dom actually around the people categories, to do with images again, and what Dom is saying, where in the people categories they want to see images that support excuse me, sorry, that support your project being undertaken by people rather than the final outcome. So they want to see people doing rather than a posed image. Okay, so that's another really good point there. So Paul B.
Yeah, just to go back to that thing about It's Your Station, it's not a project-based category. What we're looking at is not everybody enters every year either, but we are looking for continued improvement and development, and that doesn't necessarily have to be about a specific project. It will be about the whole of the station, different things that you're doing, things that you've improved, the way you developed. It might be about growing the group as well as planting or anything else. So don't think of it as project-based. Think of it, well, okay, what have you done since the last time you entered? Whether that's last year or 2 years before.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Paul. Karen, you've asked a question in the Q&A, which is actually a really important question, so I want to address that. So Karen says, so you can make a video that has photo stills in it, and that comes as a video rather than photos. No, you can't. What I'm talking about is a video, so properly filming elements of a project. So it would need to be film, not a film of stills. Okay. Okay, anyone else? Oh, Jim, sorry, I forgot to bring you in.
Just a quick comment on photographs. Sometimes it's glaringly obvious what the picture is about. Sometimes it isn't. So whether it's in the text or whether there's a caption, just to explain to the judge what the photograph is would be helpful.
Okay.
Or, sorry if I may come in there, or if it's supported but paragraph in your award submission, please just cross-reference as photo 1, photo 2, whatever. If I know where I've got to go and look, I can tie your story together, and it makes it a lot easier to mark, to score accordingly and to give feedback.
Okay. Right, thank you everyone. I'm really sorry we have run out of time. It's now 10 to 12. Fantastic input there by everyone. Absolutely wonderful. I'm going to summarize in a minute. What I'll just say is, and Hannah, I want us to do a follow-up email to everyone that's attended the webinar, and they can pass on to colleagues, and we'll include the relevant information that we've mentioned today, including the support sessions. So there is a support session for It's Your Station directly with Mark and Paul. It's a drop-in, and the schedule is up on the website, but we'll email that to everybody, and that's on the 2nd of August at 10:30, I believe. And then there's the other support sessions that are running during the open period. We'll make sure that both of those get sent to everybody. The entry booklet won't be actually published until the entries open on the 11th of September, but you've got access to all the category information, categories and criteria, rules of entry. You've had all that. But again, we'll probably reattach that to the follow-up email. So I'm just going to do a little bit of a summary now. So if you bear with me before we close. So excuse me, sorry, I've got a bit of a frog in my throat. So yeah, I hope you found the breakout rooms really useful, especially that unique opportunity of speaking with the judges so closely. That's the first time we've ever done that. And I hope the webinar now has you all fired up and excited to start putting together some excellent entries. Let's use the awards to really showcase the value of community rail out there. Let's shout about the fantastic work that you all do and muster vital support for our sector going forward. Just a thank you to all of you for joining us and for all of your contributions. I've got a feeling we could have stayed on for another half an hour with a lot of questions. So if we haven't been able to answer anything today, please fire questions across and also attend the drop-in sessions when they're available. But a big thank you to all of our wonderful judges today, especially Nikki for working hard and putting that presentation together and doing such a great job today. Dan for coming on your first time in a webinar like this and doing your introduction. Many thanks to Jim, Dominic, Vicky, Andy, Mark and Paul. And a thank you as well and a nod to all the other judges who couldn't be here today. All of our judges dedicate a significant amount of their time and do such an incredible job every year reviewing hundreds of entries. So if you have any questions that weren't answered, if you email them to events@communityrel.org.uk, but also remember the schedules. Final reminder about those important dates. Awards entries open on the 11th of September and close on the 9th of October. So be sure to start preparing early. Like I say, get a folder together, start saving all your important documents and so on. Just, you know, work smart really is a top tip from me. Oh yes, sorry, the shortlist will be published on the 18th of December and anyone who is shortlisted will be directly informed as well. A date for diaries for accredited CRPs. So all accredited CRPs will be invited to our conference on the 13th and 14th of November in Nottingham. It is by invite only. And the conference is going to follow an exciting new format this time. So watch this space and keep an eye out for your invitations. And finally, the feedback survey. Hey, it's always my part. Please take a few minutes to fill out the online survey that will pop up as we close. If there's any kind of technical hitch and it doesn't appear, we will email it to you. But please complete that. It's very brief and your input is invaluable to feed into our future events planning.
You include the judges in that
as well. Yes, we will. Yeah, we will. A link will also appear in the chat at any moment, I believe. And again, if that doesn't happen, we'll email stuff to you. So I just want to say a big thank you to everyone from me and the team, and very, very best of luck. And I look forward to seeing you all in Swansea. And judges, I will be in touch separately. We need to tie up our dates. Okay, many thanks, everybody. Oh, Dan raised a hand.
It was just a really quick one to say thank you to Hazel and Hannah for pulling this together. A really good session that I've really enjoyed. So thanks, everyone.
Oh, thank you, Dan. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,